Hi everyone, I'm Peyton Christian.
I'm Tawnee Preisner. A lot of people don't realize that horses are abused, neglected. They need rescuing, and this reality TV show is showing what these horse rescue heroes are out doing. It's the untold stories and the struggles they're facing.
Before we jump into horse rescue heroes, we have to start back at the beginning. The very beginning. How did Horse Plus get started? Who am I? We have to go back when I was really little. I've always loved horses. Horses have just always been my life. I could never imagine life without horses. When I was 4 years old, we moved next to a kill buyer. I really didn't know what a kill buyer was back then. All I knew was that he had horses coming and going, and I would go down and feed the horses and play with them. I had my own, but I just wanted to spend time with every horse I could. And it breaks my heart now, knowing what I do now and knowing that those horses I was feeding and loving on, I could have been the last person that showed them kindness. And their faces will always stay with me. Before the days of smartphones, kids played outside. And for me, when kids came over, I wanted to show them my horses. I wanted to play with my horses. And I just wanted to have a great time with my friends and my critters. One Saturday afternoon, everything changed for me. I was out, we were playing with the horses, and our horse pen ended up having a swing in it. And I was swinging, and my friends were watching me, and as I was swinging, I was just having a great time with my friends, and when I looked up, I saw a horse walking towards me, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to stop the swing, and I ended up swinging right into the back of my mom's horse, and she kicked me. And I remember the swinging into her and looking at her tail, and just everything going black from that time on for a while. And I remember just darkness, and my cousin running over to me, and she was like, Tawnee, are you okay? And I couldn't respond to her. I was there, but I wasn't. I couldn't move. I was just there. And I heard my cousin telling another friend to run, ask for help, and you know, I could hear her footsteps running away. And then my dad came, and I could hear him running up, and he's like, Tawnee, are you okay? And I couldn't respond. I was just there in darkness, hearing everything but not being able to do anything. My eyes were open. I had dirt and manure in my eyes, and I wasn't breathing. And I remember being in the car and almost feeling like I knew my life was over. I kept telling my parents, I'm like, I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. I love you, Grandma. I just kept saying that because it was a horrible thing that happened. And got to the hospital, and they put me on a gurney, and I remember going through the hospital in the gurney, just looking up, and it was a very scary time for me because I was there, but I wasn't there at the same time. And so they had a child there with a severe injury to the head and the back. So when I swung into the horse, she kicked me in the back of my head. Yeah, it feels like there's an indent to this day. There, people touch it and they're like, oh man, that's weird. And the horse also kicked me in my back, and it caused a lot of back pain for many years. They did a CT scan A lot has changed medically over the years of how they look at concussions. What my parents were told is that I had a concussion, and after everything, they're like, well, I think she can go home now. And they took the IV out, and as soon as I stood up, like, I just vomited all over the floor. I was so injured from that horse kick directly to my head. The next morning, I was able to go home. They wheeled me out in a wheelchair, and I spent weeks at home just laying. And I just remember wanting to go play with my horses during that time, and I couldn't. Thankfully, by the grace of God, I was able to get better. I've always been dyslexic, but starting school after that injury, nothing made sense. Looking at math, I just couldn't figure it out. It was like a foreign language to me. And reading became almost impossible. It was like I would see the words on the paper, and I would know what the words were for the most part. But if I was going to verbalize them and read them aloud, it was like my brain was stuttering to get the right words out. So growing up with that disability was extremely hard, but I found comfort with the horses around me because they didn't judge me that I couldn't read. I just found comfort with the horses, and growing up, I spent every minute I could with them. When I was 9 years old, I met my husband now, and the day I met him, I just knew. I was like, wow, this guy is so nice. I was 18, we got married, and I didn't have a horse at the time. That fall, I went to an auction that the kill buyer neighbor was always talking about going to. I bought a 4-year-old quarter horse. She was beautiful. She'd never been handled before, and I got her trained. I had trained horses. When I was 10, I trained Mustang how to ride. It was my first horse, was a Mustang from the BLM when I was 10 years old. My mom did a lot of the groundbreaking training of her. And the horse was still very, very unsure of everything. My mom fell off and broke her arm. And so then I took over the training of that horse from then on, and she was an awesome horse. I went to the auction, I got this amazing 4-year-old horse, and I trained her, and she was like a sponge. Everything I showed her, she soaked it up. And within 2 weeks from the auction, we were going on trail rides together, and she was just amazing. And I was totally planning on keeping her forever. It was like, this is my awesome horse. But then everything from my childhood, the neighbor with the kill buyers taking horses to slaughter, and so it all started sinking in, and I was like, wait a minute. This horse would have gone to slaughter if I hadn't rescued her, and she's amazing. And how many other horses are there just like her that aren't gonna have a chance because they are at the wrong place at the wrong time? So after a lot of thought, I thought, you know what? She's a registered quarter horse. I can sell her, find her a good home and take the money and go and rescue some more horses. And I had no clue when my husband and I started Horse Plus that it would grow so quickly and so large. And we were thinking small back in the early days, so we were in Northern California then, and we were like, well, NorCal Equine Rescue. So Northern California and equines for all the equine horse member families, and we're a rescue. And so we started out like that, and I just kept seeing the need was so big, and we just kept rescuing more and more horses and finding homes for them. In the early days, Jason funded the whole organization. There just wasn't money, for, rescuing all these horses and stuff. And he worked at masonry and put in long hours doing masonry, and it helped me be able to go out and rescue these horses that I so desperately wanted to save. Going to all these different auctions, when I was first starting out in rescuing horses, it just amazed me how some of the horses were just treated so awful. I had never really experienced just the inhumanity that these horses were going through at these auctions. I remember this one guy, he would go through the pens and just look at horses, and he'd have a bridle and he'd put them on, and he might hop on them and ride them around a little bit to see if they were trained right. He was probably trying to flip them, and if he couldn't, he'd send them to slaughter. And when he was done looking at the horse, to move that horse away, he'd just make a fist and punch the horse in the face. And I was blown away by the behavior I saw. And like after one of the auctions, these young people had bought a horse, and they were there just grabbing a hold of the horse's whiskers and yanking them out. And I'm like, guys, look, this isn't nice. You need to stop. And I tried, but when I spoke out, it would, the auction would get angry, the auction owners, and they would be like, hey, you're hurting our customers and blah, blah, blah. And they'd kick us out of auctions.
My name's Jason Preisner, and I'm just leaving the Roseville Livestock Auction because we were physically removed from the premises by the owner, Norm. And anyway, they told us they never wanted us coming back, or they're going to hit us in the face and call the cops and have us thrown in jail.
And we pulled a protest to get back into the auction so we could save more horses. And I'd seen so much at these auctions, and I'd want to tell people what I was seeing because it was horrendous. And this one auction, we pulled up to the loading area to get our horses that we had saved, and they were trying to load this one horse, and she didn't know how to lead. It was her first probably contact with humans. And when she came out, she had a rope around her neck, and they put a halter on her. So I could tell they probably roped her and got a halter on her, and they were trying to literally drag her into this horse trailer, and she was rearing and just traumatized. And she finally just collapsed on the ground, and they couldn't get her up. And I went over there, and I'm like, I'll buy her. And I bought her for $50 laying there on the ground. And she survived that horrible experience and went on to win our Extreme Rescue Makeover competition. She's just a fabulous horse. These horses are just disposable animals, and when they end up in the slaughter pipeline, they're there, and if somebody can make money off them, great. If not, off to slaughter they go. And this loading horses at auctions, there's so many horrendous things that happen that I've seen. I mean, I've seen horses, come to an auction in an enclosed shipping truck, like if you rented a moving truck for moving. I've seen people bring horses to auctions like that in the middle of summer, and they open up the doors to the cargo truck, and these horses are just dripping in sweat. People trying to load horses into, like a 2-horse straight trailer, and they're just pulling and yanking these horses in these trailers. And I remember one trailer had a baseball bat in it, and I'm just like, what? Why does somebody have a baseball bat in their horse trailer? And the way they're loading these horses, it's not surprising, because if people weren't watching, I'm sure they'd use that baseball bat on the horse. And just trailer doors slamming into horses' legs repeatedly, trying to get them to put their legs into the trailer. Horses go through a lot at auctions, and that's where I just wanted to save as many horses as I could. But when I go to these auctions, I'd pick and choose who could I save and who could I not, because I couldn't, I could only afford to take care of so many horses. And I remember this one auction I went to that completely changed my concept of rescuing horses. There was these 2 horses, they were so sweet, and I was loving on them, and they both had medical problems, and I'm like, I can't adopt them out. There's no way, and they're so sweet, and I'm like, I hope somebody comes and gets them. But I was their only hope there, really, and I just didn't, it was a different way of rescuing that I had in my mind back then, is I'd rescue those who I knew I could find homes for. And the auction started, they came in the ring, they sold so cheaply. They were like really old, like in their 30s. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. Somebody got them. And after the auction, I watched them load on the slaughter truck. And right then I knew how I was rescuing horses was completely wrong. They needed my help just as much as the other horses I rescued at the auction, even if it was just a safe place to be loved, nurtured, and then, have a veterinarian make that decision. Is there a quality of life issue that's affecting this horse? Is the kindest thing to do is to ultimately say goodbye to them. And from that time on, I realized I just need to rescue every horse I can, financially rescue and care for at auctions, and have a veterinarian make the decision, what's the best option for this horse? Is it adoption, or is it just being there and saying goodbye and loving them in the end? And from that time on, we changed how we rescued horses. People were starting to look at us and being like, well, they're rescuing horses and then they're euthanizing them. This isn't right. And I was like, they're not at these auctions watching these horses that are unadoptable load up on slaughter trucks. I knew what I was doing was the right thing for those horses. Their owners should have been responsible for them. They weren't. They dumped them into the slaughter pipeline. So I had to step in and be responsible for those horses. So I started looking at rescuing the bigger picture. And as we kept going to these auctions in California, more and more rescues started, popping up and rescuing horses, which was wonderful because we need rescues out there. But at auctions, there could be, even up to 5 rescues there trying to rescue horses. We got a call from one of our supporters, and they were moving back east and they needed somebody to move their horses. And we're talking about horses in their 20s and 30s, and they wanted somebody they could trust. And they're like, can you please transport our horses for us? And we're like, okay, we can do this. It'd be nice to have a little family vacation trip across the United States. And I'd never, driven across the United States before, so it's like, all right, we'll go from California to North Carolina and get these horses to their homes. I'm all for people keeping animals when they're moving. So we drove back, got them to their home, and it was really, really pretty. It was October, and going back, we stopped in Tennessee, and I was like, we have a really big trailer that's empty. Why don't we go to some auctions? I'm always trying to rescue more horses. And so we went to an auction, and I was kind of blown away by what I was seeing, because in California it was a felony to sell horses for slaughter. Happened all the time. I've gone undercover into feedlots, and I've seen so much. And it's reported, and law enforcement just doesn't want to touch it because they've got so many other issues, and it's the horses going to slaughter. But it happens all the time. There was some really big players that shipped, one shipped north, one shipped south, and it's just the slaughter pipeline in California. And I went undercover to do a lot of investigations with news channels and stuff. But in Tennessee, shipping horses to slaughter is perfectly legal. And I got to the auction, and there's a semi truck there, and horses, just loading onto a semi truck, and I'm like, this is a little intense. And there's just kill buyers buying horses, and they're talking about that one's nice and fat, it'll bring a good price for you. And I'm just like, where's the rescues? And there were none at this auction. And we bought some horses and donkeys, and we took them back to California. And I was like, there's so many horses back there that need help, and there's just no rescues. And here we're in California, and we go to an auction, there's so many rescues. We could be a greater help in Tennessee. So I started researching animal controls and what are the animal laws in Tennessee. And I found out that there weren't even animal controls in many counties. There was just nothing. And it was really like a third world country for animals. There was no resources, there was no shelters for them. And so we started researching different counties, and we picked a county in Middle Tennessee that had absolutely no animal services. There was no city animal control, no county animal control, and we're like, that's where we need to be. And it was Hole in Wall, Tennessee, and we came back, we purchased 25 acres of land, and started building the facility. And it takes a lot to build a facility from scratch, and we came in with not having a huge building fund, and it just developed little by little over the years. And we've been here for almost 5 years now, and it's just amazing what we've done here in Tennessee. We've gone to so many different auctions and rescued so many horses that would have never had a chance. There's just no rescues. Hundreds of horses are shipped through Tennessee in the slaughter pipeline and go to slaughter in Mexico. We have a lot of programs that we help horses nationwide because, starting this organization, the need is everywhere for these horses. And so we have done low-cost euthanasia assistant programs. So that's to prevent horses from ending up at auctions. And if an owner has a horse and they can't afford euthanasia, and it's the horse's suffering, we want to provide assistance for that horse. So we have that program. We've done gelding assistance programs, so that would be like neutering a male horse. And we just want to help as much as we can because the need is so huge out there, and if we're not actively pursuing programs that are helping horses nationwide, we're not going to make such a big impact on the lives of horses. We also have some other programs that we have available, such as people that are in rehab can come to our facility and help volunteer and connect with the horses. And we've seen so many amazing stories come out of that. These guys will come in and help volunteer, and they're painting shelters, they're doing whatever needs to be done, weed eating. And while that's happening, they're in rehab and they're meeting these horses that are also in rehab, and just seeing that transition together and that connection. And we've seen some horses that they didn't want to be around anybody. They'd just gone through so much, and then just walk up to one of the people that are in the rehab center, walk up to a guy out in the pen that's weed eating, or just that connection's there. One thing that we really want to focus on at our shelter here is focusing on adoptions. We rescue so many horses, and we can't adopt them all out here from our facility. So looking at that problem, we started realizing, okay, we need adoption partners. So we network with other organizations, nonprofit horse welfare organizations across the United States, to take horses that come through our shelter. So when a horse comes in from auction, we give it veterinarian care, farrier care, it gets quarantined, trainer evaluation, and then it's made available to the public for adoption, and also our adoption partners. We also work with trainers because trainers have an amazing network of horse people and people looking to adopt horses. And so by utilizing trainers as equine professional adoption partners, we're able to place so many more horses that come into our programs, and those horses, go from, an auction not having any chance to our shelter, transitioning to an adoption partner and finding a loving home. And we rescue horses from auctions every single month, and I do all the fundraising for rescuing those horses. It costs a lot of money to responsibly rescue a horse. And so before the auctions, I'm just fundraising and fundraising and fundraising. And I have been so sick so many times at auctions, running fevers. And this one time I was so sick with pneumonia, and I could literally do nothing to help with that auction rescue but lay in the motel room and fundraise and answer people's questions. And
I am in bed fundraising because that's all I can do. I've had pneumonia for about a month, and I am
really thankful for the team of people we have at Horse Plus, because I haven't been able to do anything basically, but I can fundraise because it's on the computer. And I've been mentoring ponytails. They've been calling and we've been talking on the phone.
Horse Plus isn't just, me running this organization. It's a network of amazing people and staff we have here. And that's very important for any organization is, put amazing people in place. We developed a program called the One Day Open Door Shelter for Horses. And that program is an amazing program. And so what we did is we would go in, rent a fairgrounds, work with a local veterinarian, work with local rescues as adoption partners, and hold a free surrender day, no questions asked, for people that have horses so they could have a safe place to bring their horse if they couldn't keep it. And we held so many one-day open-door shelters across the United States. It was exhausting, but it was amazing the impact we were making. The one-day open-door shelter programs were a huge success. We had people wanting us to come to their fairgrounds, to their communities, and hold these events. The need is so huge, and I'd see these rescues at these events, and they're like, this is so wonderful. And I'm like, with training, these rescues that are here could hold, free surrender events and take these horses because they're capable of doing it. They just don't have the resources and the tools to know how to do it. And so from that program, we developed the Full Circle of Life Horse Shelter Mentoring Program. The goal of this program is to help other organizations across the United States and beyond. As rescuers, if we're churning away horses, they're ending up in the slaughter pipeline. And there's resources, there's help out there. And so, through this amazing journey that we're going to take with season 1 of Horse Rescue Heroes, you're going to see a transition happen with an organization. I've been rescuing horses for over 16 years. I've seen a lot. Taking the tools that we have learned and sharing the mistakes that we have made can help other organizations thrive and prosper. This reality TV show is following that, and it's going to be such an amazing journey. You're not going to want to miss a single episode because it's the reality of what Horse Rescue Heroes go through.